Why isn't your tenant paying the rent anymore? What happened? I've got a big answer for you. And also, if you call the lowest class of rental housing a 1 and the highest a 10, then which class is most likely to be profitable for you over time in long-term rentals? Is it a 3 out of 10 or is it an 8? I've got an answer for you today with the exact numbers. So while you're thinking about that, understand this first. Real estate is not even considered to be an asset class by some experts. That's because it is such a segmented market. You can segment it by class or by type, like the single-family rental market or the apartment market or the mobile home park market. And then there's long-term rentals, and then there are short-term rentals in various geographies and more. So that's why some experts don't even consider real estate to be an asset class. And often that's why housing data cannot be broad brush stroked. Since 2019, the ability for your tenant to pay rent has become more dependent on the class of housing that you provide. In market rate apartments and likely single family rentals as well, these higher income renters, they keep paying your rent. And in fact, that rate has even improved recently, inching toward a 96% collection rate. Conversely, rent-restricted subsidized housing, like where there are government vouchers to pay for tenants' housing, like the Section 8 program is a well-known one, for example, well, that tends to attract lower income tenants. So we don't focus so much on those situations here. They are struggling to pay the rent. That rate keeps slipping, now at 86%. So you can see this gap opening up. With credit to RealPage, what this chart really shows is that widening gap between rent collection in market rate apartments and subsidized housing. So what's going on? Why this widening gap? What's happening? That is because high inflation hits low-income residents the hardest. Now, the latest inflation number was just reported at 7.1%. Some point to the fact that it's come off its high, but you're still paying 7.1% more for everything that you were a year ago. So are your tenants, and that's still more than 3 times as high as the government wants it. It's still out of control by a lot of measures. But even that 7.1% number, that's often understated with the way that it's calculated, and grocery inflation is even higher. So if the true inflation rate for groceries is, say, 15%, well, you can think about how that leaves struggling households with less money to pay rent. Now, market rate renters, they're the tenants that have those mid to high incomes, so they're going to be less affected by something like grocery inflation. And they're also the people that are more likely to have wages that keep pace with inflation. Well, before I tell you what class of housing from 1 to 10 is the most profitable and recession resilient over time, while you're thinking about that, the 3 takeaways from this chart for you is that your most economically resilient income properties are often market rate units. Secondly, they're 1 to 4 unit properties and better apartments because they're generally the type of real estate that attracts higher income tenants. And then thirdly, you want properties just below the area's median housing price. Avoid investing in the lowest housing tiers. That's a real clue with that 1 to 10 thing. Now, with those 3 takeaways, I've really given you some clues about the exact asset classes better for long-term rentals over time. Well, you don't want the lowest, the 1 out of 10, and that's because those properties don't appreciate very much. They're often in blighted, unsafe areas, and they just don't attract tenants that tend to respect the property or actually pay the rent like I've touched on. We don't want a 10 out of 10. They're like ultra luxurious, opulent places with gold-plated bathtubs and views of waterfalls because the rent income that you can generate is so low compared to the high property value. Well, the answer is a 4. Yeah, it's about a 4 out of 10. And of course, that's going to vary depending on local market conditions. Maybe it's a 3 out of 10 in some markets. Maybe it's a 5 in others. Like I said, real estate is so segmented. But yeah, a 4. That's typically where you get the highest ratio of rent income in proportion to a low purchase price with tenants that actually pay the rent Now in short-term rentals, that number might be more like a 7 plus. So for your investing year ahead with still higher than normal inflation and a possible recession, the best place that I can think of for you to invest dollars is with a low down payment in income property that's just below the purchase price. This way, in high inflation, you want to get out of dollars and into real assets and debt. Well, you just achieved all of those things right there, buying an income property with a loan. And then in an economic downturn, if you think that's coming, well, an extra rental income stream is going to be even more important to you and anyone else. What you learned today is that inflation hurts the lowest income renters the most, and that the right level for the class of long-term rental property to own is a 4 out of 10 in my opinion. They are the property types that we have long focused on here at GRE. I hope that helps with your long-term real estate wealth building. I'm Keith Weinhold. I'll see you in the next video.